Okay, so I got the tent in place here, and I got the stove assembled, and all that's left here is to add a stove jack into this tent. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about this tent. It's not a typical or a manufactured hot tent. This is your basic two-man dome tent. It's a 5x7. This particular one here, I got at Bass Pro Shops, and I got an MSR tent that I paid a couple $100 for. This one here on sale just before Christmas. I think it was regularly $50. It was on sale for less than $30. And I should have bought two. I don't know if they were clearing them out or what the deal was, but I've been back since and there haven't been any more. So this was the Bass Pro Shops Eclipse 2-man 5x7 tent. Once again, paid less than $30 Canadian for it. So it's like $20 US. So I figured, what the heck, I'm going to give this a try here. I'm going to put the stove near the door so we can, evacuate quickly if we need to. But I got the stove jack that I used in the tarp shelter. And I got a couple other things I'm going to show you to hopefully make this just a little bit safer. And I think it's going to work out just fine. So that's the tent. That's the story. Let's get the stove set up in there. Okay, so we got our stove, which got assembled. Basically, you got those legs on there pretty easily. Couple more pieces to the puzzle. This is my piece of foam that I'm going to sleep on. The ground's still pretty cold out here. I just rolled inside there. The foam was, I think, 26 inches. I added a couple more inches, so it's sticking out not too far, but about 28 inches of pipe. So that's 3-inch pipe with a 3-inch hole in our stove. I got an elbow that is going to go in the stove. Make sure you can see that. So that fits fairly snugly. And once again, the serrated side goes into the hole so that it's fairly tight. And all that's left now, so basically, as I mentioned, this isn't an actual hot tent because there is no stove jack. Well, on my channel, you guys have seen my obsession with stove jacks, and this is why. If you can get an inexpensive stove jack, this was a DIY made out of a silicone cookie sheet. We had to do a little bit of fooling around to get some duct tape to stick on that, but we got that figured out. There's a video of that on the channel. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a hole in my tent as soon as I kind of determine the right spot. I didn't do a run through of this at home. It's a lot more fun if you kind of wing it out here. I brought a pair of scissors along, which I normally wouldn't bring. And I got some duct tape, but as it turns out, the duct tape that I used last time, I just kind of stuck onto this other duct tape, and it seems to be sticking pretty well, even though this duct tape is a good several weeks old. Anyway, so I'm going to position the stove roughly where I want it inside my tent. Hopefully the ground is kind of level. So I'm allowing myself, so this is a 5x7, so it's 5 feet wide. I figure if I can give the stove 2.5 feet and I get 2.5 feet, that's a pretty fair trade-off. I'm going to go on the side by the door. Maybe on the back side of the tent, but truthfully, I kind of want the stove where I can get it out of the tent if I need to. I'll be back there. The fire is out here. I don't know. I just feel more comfortable with it that way. So I'm going to go ahead and cut a hole in my $30 tent here, and I'm thinking right there. It's not gonna really matter too much, but I am gonna have to cut a slightly oversized hole, kind of close to the edge. So just looking to make sure if that's where we want that. So I'm going to go ahead and cut cut my hole here. My stove is right there. Like I said, pains me a little bit, but hey, we can always patch it. We got duct tape. Hopefully this isn't going to run. I guess that's always a chance with nylon like this. I'm not sure if we're going to need some seam sealer. We're going to find out. You know, I've cut through that seam. I don't think it's going to matter. In any case, we are we are cut. So that's just a first cut. I'm going to go a little bit oversize, up and over. Our stove jack's quite a bit bigger, so I don't think that's going to be a problem. And I think if that moves a little bit, what's going to happen, because the stove jack seals tightly, the pipe is basically going to stay, you know, wherever I put it. So I'm going to put the stove jack onto the pipe here. You can see it fits fairly snugly, and then put this. Hopefully I got enough room for the camera tripod into the elbow. Might have to move the stove back just a little bit. Making sure that we're still kind of centered there. And then I'm going to use this duct tape to position the stove jack. Okay, to complete the setup here, we got the silicone stove jack duct tape to the outside of the tent, and I got a good almost too much pipe sticking out of there, but there's almost all of it sticking out, which is okay, and it's sealed up nice and tight there. The duct tape is sticking well enough. It's you know, not quite as sticky as I would like, but it's not going to come off there, so might have to maybe fool around with some different brands of duct tape, but for this purpose here, seems to be holding on there just fine. And underneath the stove, I got that silicone barbecue sheet, the Coquina brand, rated to 550 degrees. So if we get a little bit too much heat underneath, then and I think that's going to just prevent our tarp floor from melting. And as you can see, I got a little bit of relief cut around the stove jack, so we'll see if that's enough. We're not going to get a terribly large fire in here, but it's possible that we may get a little bit of melting on that nylon fabric. So the tent fabric is actually impregnated with a little bit of fire retardant material, so I don't think the whole thing is going to become one big Roman candle, but that'll be part of the experiment here tonight. And just a shot inside this tent, everything up top here is all mesh, basically, you know, right down to the green here, that part right there. So there's tons of ventilation in here, so anybody worried about, you know, carbon monoxide or whatever, I'm essentially sleeping outside with a little bit of a rain cover over my head. So you know, I'm thinking if I sleep with my head at this end, it's going to be, you know, near the top half of my body, be able to roll over and put a little bit of wood in there. I'm going to have another little bit of a wood pile just outside the door, and if I run out of firewood inside, I'll just be able to grab what's out there. So it's about 11 o'clock at night, and kind of settled in here a little bit. I got the stove stoked up pretty good. You can see there's a little bit of a glow there. The fire is kind of close to the front of the door, but you know, kind of damped down as much as I can get it. So got a couple logs in there, and you know, it's throwing a good amount of heat. Definitely warm enough in here. I don't know what the outside temperature is, but it's probably got to be close to, you know, maybe a couple of degrees above zero. And it's certainly very toasty inside here. So I'm going to keep this thing going as long as I can here tonight. Probably set the alarm every couple hours. I just, you know, kind of took a quick temperature or reading on the side of the tent fabric there, and while it is warm, it's not hot and it's not melting. Even though, you know, I haven't really got a lot of pipe, you know, from the stove to the stove jack. So I think just keeping it damped down as low as we can. Got a lot of pitchy wood in there, so, you know, got quite a bit of flame, but there's not much wood in there. So kind of keeping that thing damped down if we can. So we're going to keep it going through the night here and take a look at things in the morning. I don't think there's any danger of you know, anything really going up in flames here. I got that mat below there, so any little spark that happens to fall out is going to fall on that. And I've had that a couple of times already, and it doesn't burn through that, so that's good. Overall, I think it's working probably better than expected. I don't know really what I was expecting here, but so far so good. So just to wrap up this section on the DIY micro stove in the $30 Bass Pro tent, overall it worked pretty well. Didn't go through as much wood as I thought I might, so that's a good thing. It was fairly efficient. It threw a good amount of heat, so it kept us fairly toasty last night. And the stove jack worked pretty well also. It didn't get any melting of the tent fabric, so that worked out well. Did get a little bit of melt on the silicone stove jack, because at one point I got the stove just probably a little bit too hot. The only other thing I ran into is that the duct tape didn't stick all that well to the silicone impregnated tent fabric. So I had to kind of rig it up on the tent pole there just to keep that pipe centered, you know, around in the hole for the tent fabric. So other than that, as I say, everything worked out pretty well. I think I would try this again, maybe just with a couple of minor adjustments. But, you know, for what it is, for the cost of it, I think it's a viable option. So that's it for this one. Until next time, take it easy.